Hi and welcome to Drummers Review. I'm Nolly, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a Noble & Cooley Walnut Classic shell pack with a walnut ply snare drum. Noble & Cooley is one of the most highly respected drum manufacturers out there, with a rich 160-year history of building drums in Massachusetts, USA. The kit that we have here today is a Walnut Classic model made out of purely horizontal plies of walnut in accordance with a design created by Witt Percussion. Our review set comprises of a 22 by 14 inch bass drum, 10 by 8 and 12 by 8 inch rack toms, 14 by 14 and 16 by 16 inch floor toms, and a 14 by 6.5 inch snare. Finished in a high gloss lacquer with black chrome hardware, this shell pack would set you back £4,495 here in the UK, while the snare costs £695. Before we go any further though, let's hear some more of it in action. Taking this kit out of its cases, everyone in the review team was blown away by how beautiful it is. The combination of the deep walnut with the dark hardware and badges is brooding and classy, and I really like how the long brass tube lugs set off the shells, giving the appearance of a free floating design and creating the visual effect of the drums being more cylindrical somehow. Tuning up the kit was extremely smooth sailing, which speaks to the standard of the shells and the bearing edges, as well as the high quality hardware used. While you can choose your personal heads of choice when ordering a Noble & Cooley, this kit came to us with Evans all around. We've got coated over clear G1s on the toms, a coated G1 over snare side 300 on the snare, while the bass drum has a clear EQ3 batter and an unported calf tone front head, and it came with an Evans EQ pad placed inside. Speaking of which, this bass drum has to be one of the most outrageous we've ever featured on Drummers Review. It's absolutely thunderous, with massive resonance and sustain, and we can see why it's been spec'd with a fairly shallow 14-inch depth, because the response feels so direct you can feel the low end shaking right back up through your leg. It's the kind of kick sound that we think works best when you've got loads of space between the hits, so you can make the most out of the depth of tone without mudding up the mix. Both rack toms are fantastically plummy and deep, and take very little effort to coax into a rich note with pure and long sustain. Their super defined pitches are fun to play with, and they inspire a more melodic approach to using the toms in composition. The floor toms carried a similar depth and fullness, though here we felt like the single-ply coated G1 batters weren't quite able to cope with harder hits in the low tuning that the drums were begging for. The result was a fair amount of pitch dive when laid into, but the toms themselves would clearly be capable of ultra beefy tones if they were outfitted with either double ply or thick single ply batters. Hopefully I'm not sounding too much like a broken record here, but the snare drum is also wonderfully rich and deep sounding, with a long clear note that lends it a very musical quality. This strong tone is somewhat of a trademark character that we've noticed in Noble & Cooley snares in the past. It's really rewarding to play, though under close miking you might find you want to reach for some muffling to dry up the response. Listening to the set as a whole, the best word I can come up with, yet again, is thunderous. I do feel a little bit conflicted about the fact that they're marketed as vintage sounding though, because while they are warm and dark, they've got so much depth to them that they don't make me think of the leaner, mid-ranged focused tone that comes to mind when I think of vintage drums. Build quality wise, this is just about as good as it gets. From the quality of the raw materials to the flawless construction, there's no doubt that these drums are the product of extremely skilled and experienced craftsmen. This also carries through to the shell hardware, which has a reassuringly expensive feel to it. The combination of purposeful weightiness and smooth tuning action lets you know these drums are going to keep delivering for many years to come. The only exception to this is the snare strainer mechanism, which when brand new is quite stiff to operate, though doubtless will become easier with time. As we've mentioned before in Noble & Cooley reviews, as well as with a few other manufacturers who have similar systems, we're not really fans of throw-offs that have such long travel, because it really affects how quickly you can engage and disengage the wires, especially if you need to do so on the fly mid-song. On the other hand, we're big fans of the cool mount system for the rack toms, which not only makes for laughably quick setup, but also does an amazing job of preserving the natural tone and sustain of the rack toms while mounted. Further neat touches include the use of brass for the lugs, the strategically placed vent holes, and the thicker than average hoops. It's difficult to say exactly how much each of these design aspects is contributing to the tone of the kit, but it seems Noble & Cooley have found a combination that certainly works really well for these shells. A kit like this is clearly aimed at professional drummers, although will no doubt be an aspiration for many players out there. The sound the drums provided us with the review session would definitely lend itself to musical styles where there's enough space to enjoy the fullness of tone, whether that be in country or slow melodic pop and rock, or even blues and modern jazz. However, it'd be interesting to hear how the shells react to bright, clear heads, since we can imagine this opening up the sonic palette to many other contemporary genres. This is obviously a premium kit with a premium price tag to match, but drums of this quality are built to last a lifetime. We think this kit offers more than just the vintage label that Noble & Cooley have attached to it. Why don't you let us know what you think by leaving us a comment below with your thoughts? Don't forget to click the subscribe and bell icon to be notified of future reviews. And we'll see you next time on Drummers Review.